Time for some New York politics now, and it seems like Governor Cuomo's got a union problem and an endorsement problem. He's already been snubbed by two of the state's most powerful and influential public employees unions. The Public Employees Federation is backing Cuomo's challenger Zephyr Teachout in the primary, and the New York State United Teachers Union says it's staying out of the gubernatorial race this go around. Also, we got the AFL-CIO declining to endorse Governor Cuomo in his primary or so far in the general election. And I'll start with you, Mr. Chairman, a little red meat for you as the Republican leader in the state. What does this say to you about the state of Andrew Cuomo's reelection?
It says that Andrew Cuomo is a perfect backroom politician, which he was under his father. He's still doing that. He's making very close political calculations. There's only one union statewide that he fears, and that's 1199. He doesn't fear NYSUT. He doesn't fear PEF because they can impact local races, but they can't impact his statewide race.
And they don't have the membership. They don't have the
1199.
membership. Let's not leave that out, right?
Yeah. And behind the scenes and the Medicaid stuff, he's been giving them goodies to make sure they stay quiet and support him.
Nobody's suggesting at this point from the numbers that that Governor Cuomo's in trouble for the primary or even so far in the general election, at least from the numbers that we've seen. Is there a danger here that he sets himself up to be weakened in a second term if he wins re-election, so that he might be in a situation that Chris Christie's in New Jersey, where he doesn't seem to quite have the hands on the throttle of the state the way he did in his first term?
That would be weakened.
Yes, it would be. I said it twice in the same setup. Is there a chance that this re-election campaign weakens him for a second term, assuming he wins?
A second term will be designed to get him to the presidency, a place his father couldn't get to. He wants to get there. And to do that, he's got to chase his party to the far left. And that's why he wanted the endorsement of the Working Families Party. So this state's going to be in deep trouble after this election because fiscal conservatism will go out the door. He's headed to the far left. And
if he has to move to the far left, the unions would be taking him there. The unions are leaving him at the prom.
The one thing this city and the state has seen quite a bit, third terms are no good for anybody. His father learned that the hard way after he was thrown out for the third term. What happens here is he wins the second term if he wins this thing and pulls it off, which, as you said, is there a threat or not? It'll be a much tighter race than it is right now. But he's not going to do as well as his expectations are right now. There's no question about that. He will be weakened in that second term. And the question is, if he wants to run for office then, how far left will he have to go to get there? And he won't be chasing the unions there at that point. He'll be on a national agenda and see what he can do there. But he won't care about a third term about getting reelected at that point.
I got to tell you, I don't think the presidential aspirations, I mean, people may talk about it. I don't think that real. And quite frankly, I mean, when was the last president we had come from New York? It was Roosevelt, right? And so I don't think people are looking at Andrew Cuomo or looking at what's happening in New York and saying that's where our president's going to come from. Everybody's talking about either Hillary or Elizabeth Warren. And if there's a progressive movement coming from the left to either get Hillary out of the race or promote Warren-esque ideologies that the front runner is going to end up embracing, I don't know that Andrew Cuomo, who will probably win and probably be a little weaker in his second term, I don't think he's a standard bearer for that. Certainly not the way that he's engaged the unions thus far.
Chris Christie ran up the score in his recent re-election bid.
Cuomo wants to.
That's what this is all about. It's a game of expectations. How much will Governor Cuomo win by? If the margin does not meet expectations, he's wounded for a second term, but there will be a second. And we're all assuming that she's going to be on the ballot. Remember, this is all under appeal still.
Well, they're jumping to Zephyr Teachout.
Right, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you for setting me up because I'm just about to introduce that topic. Because whether you think she's got a chance in the primary or not, Zephyr Teachout's had a very good couple of weeks, at least when it comes to the press that she's gotten.
The press. The press is payback to Cuomo. That's what's going on.
She's won her spot on the ballot, at least right now. They were in court today trying to knock her off, the Cuomo campaign was. And she's gotten all sorts of attention. Journal news columnist Phil Reisman wrote a column saying that she's basically become a bona fide thorn in Cuomo's side and said that she had a great political week last week. She also gotten a love note from Ken Lovett in the Daily News. And so I understand that Zephyr Teachout is probably not going to beat Andrew Cuomo in a primary. Probably. I can't say 100% because I can't.
What about the lieutenant governor spot? In a Democratic primary for lieutenant governor, that's a much different issue. You've got an Asian American running in New York City, running statewide, but the New York City Asian vote at this point, don't forget. Lou is on the ballot too in a primary in Queens. You're going to have a tremendous Asian turnout. Anything can happen in that race right now.
Here's my question when it relates to Zephyr Teachout. What percentage of the vote does she have to get in a primary against Governor Cuomo for it to really be a hamstring to Governor Cuomo or a black eye for Governor Cuomo heading towards November against Rob Astorino? At what point does Teachout's numbers begin to hurt
40%?
Cuomo?
Actually, not just
5%?
Teachout.
I think where she will have the biggest impact as an expert who has a book coming out with respect to corruption.
But she's
and
an
her
expert,
co-
Mr. Chair, huh?
her-
She's an
her-
expert,
her
huh?
co- her co- well, I mean, she's written a book on it. She studied it. She
Okay.
knows corruption when she sees it.
Okay.
And she said because of Cuomo's obstruction of justice with respect to the Moreland Commission and tampering with witnesses, he should resign. And I think that's where she can have the biggest impact because if the Moreland Commission really sinks in the public, the polls show that the lead over Astorino shrinks to 41%, and that puts him in jeopody. Not what percentage she might get, but the percentage that Rob Astorino will get.
His problem, he has to break 60%. If he doesn't have a 6 in front,
that's right.
and I point that out because it's not her numbers. There's another Democrat in the ballot too that could take 2 points, and that 2 points could keep him below 60%.
Yeah.
All
Agreed.
right. I want to shift to Staten Island quickly here, where embattled Republican Congressman Michael Grimm continues to get some attention. He's now under attack by national Democrats who are putting $1 million into the campaign against him. They're reminding people of his rap sheet when heading to the polls. They've already launched their first 2 midterm campaign TV ads attacking Grimm. Here's a sample.
Congressman Michael Grimm arrested earlier today.
The Republican has been indicted by the feds.
A 20-count indictment.
The result of a 2-year investigation.
Indicted on federal fraud charges.
When you don't have to do when you don't have to hire a voiceover guy for an ad and it's just all TV anchors, that's bad for you. As we reported, Grimm indicted on 20 counts of tax and business fraud back in April. We've seen that donors, according to reports, are backing away from him. And the National Republican Congressional Committee is not. Mr. Chairman, is the state's GOP putting money into the Grimm campaign?
No, and that is more the NRCC.
Okay.
We work with campaigns, but not necessarily put money in. Let me say, though, he's from Staten Island.
Right.
Staten Island is the huge majority of his district. Recchia, his opponent, comes from Brooklyn. Staten Island are loyal to their own. I wouldn't write him off yet, despite all
Also,
those ads.
Recchia is now possibly under investigation himself.
He's got his
at
own
this
problems,
point,
that's right.
because the AG or U.S. Attorney, one of the investigators, just subpoenaed records from a non-for-profit that Recchia funded while he was in City Council. So there's some issues there too that go right back to him.
I actually wonder if any of the Eric Garner controversy how that's going to impact turnout on Staten Island, and not necessarily in the sense that you'll have a tremendous number of African Americans coming out. Although I think you could to potentially turn that race, but also is there a backlash against the Garner activity from some of the residents on Staten Island to push Grimm over the top?
You could also see an increase in Republican turnout in Staten Island if they feel like they're lining up to a guy who's been unfairly maligned, and every Republican vote's going to be critical
Actually,
for Rob
Democrats
Astorino.
are a majority on Staten Island. It's just they vote Republican more often than they vote Democrat.
And it's a non-presidential year too, so it's actually Republicans' favorite too.
All right. Well, it's only a non-presidential year because they're not voting this year, but it's always a presidential year in this news cycle. Up next, Hillary heads to Iowa. See what I did there? It's a sure sign that she's going to run for the nation's top job. We're going to get into that next.